Hey, Kino Wife Mom Boss. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Kino Wife Mom Boss podcast. I'm super excited about today. I have my special guest. I'm calling her Q, but Q Nona Guilford. I'm so excited to have her. Q Nona is a transformation speaker. She's an author. She's a book coach. And I met Q at one of her events that she was hosting for a book that she wrote, which was called Becoming Wine. And it was a I wanted to call it docu-series, but it's a documentary. I don't know why I want to call it docu-series. I don't know. But anyways, it was incredibly insightful, empowering. And everyone, and especially for those who deal with rejection, I feel like this would be so amazing for you. But I want to give Q an opportunity to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about herself. Go for it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Nona Guilford. I am an author. It was not my necessarily plan to become an author, but it was God's design. Here I have written 8 books, and it was all God's plan. One of them, the one she was talking about, is called Becoming Wine, and that is actually a book and a documentary. God has been good to me. I am a coach, transformational coach. I was beginning to find myself talking to people, talking to friends, and just I seen their lives transform before my eyes. And I was like, well, God, is this something that you want me to go into? So in a nutshell, I'm very humble. And I just am very obedient. If you want to call me anything, just call me obedient because that's what I am.
Absolutely. So, I know you go live sometime on social medias, and I've been able to catch a couple of those lives. And I remember, I think the first time I actually was able to listen to a full live, and you started out and you were talking, and I was like, okay, she's giving some good information. And then you started going in. I was like, oh, I didn't know Q that throws it in like that. And so I definitely can see the transformation coach in you, how you desire for people to be healed, delivered, set free, and just growing to a certain capacity. And we've met through so weird. We've met through people, through organizations, just mutual situations. And I was laughing when I was typing out a couple of things that I wanted to talk about for our podcast because I was like, okay, when I first met you, it was Sulani, of course. It was Sulani Dempsey, but then our churches are connected in a way, sort of. And I was like, ah, Q. Q is a really cool person. So that was excited. I'm excited to have you on the podcast. We were talking about being excited about being on the podcast at the beginning of the episode. And I was like, hey, wait, we got to start the podcast. So just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, because it's very
In the
interesting.
process of, go ahead.
I said, yeah, because it's very interesting because like 5 minutes ago, or well, about 30 minutes ago, I found out who you were because it was funny that you sent out it and it was like so random, but it was so God. Because I'm in a place now, I'm like, okay, whatever you want to do, God, I keep giving God this yes, and I keep telling God yes. And so it was like random because I haven't done a podcast in forever, but it was so intentional because of the season that I'm in my life. Like it's like a launching pad. And so when I found out you was Effie's daughter, it just blew
Oh,
my mind because
geez.
I love Effie and she's always pushed me and just having conversations with her um always like took me out of the darkness. And so I'm super excited. I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to tell you that. Like I am absolutely excited because I can see where you pick up her legacy.
Lord, now don't have me crying on this podcast, Q. Don't do that. But yeah, I was actually talking to my daughter about that the other day because she graduated high school last week.
Good.
And I don't know what it is. I feel like most of our family, like, we're connected through my mom because my mom is such a family oriented person. And she's
Yeah.
always like, just she tries to be there for everybody. She tries to support everybody.
Mhm.
And so when my daughter graduated and I was looking through pictures and seeing all the people that showed up for her graduation, it made me emotional. Girl, I done cried about 4 times already during this graduation. Now here I am crying to the graduation, looking at these pictures and just getting emotional about the people, who showed up for her graduation. Cause I was telling her that I mean, you see people say that, their mothers clapped so loud for them that they didn't pay attention to who wasn't. And that was my mom for me. And
Yeah.
I know you can see that, like, my mom has supported me. Girl, I am good up in age, and my mom continued to support me until, like, even on her deathbed, my mama continued to support me. So, I'm glad to hear that she had an impact on you too.
Yeah, because I was even at the funeral. She just from day one at the beginning to she just always encouraged me. I was telling Lonnie one day when we all I think we had went to go hear Pastor Jay speak, and so they were going out to eat in Mariana, and I was like, oh, can I come? And they came and just like we can. We had such a powerful conversation, and to me, that's what your mom represented. She was just that, like, even though I felt like I might have been a stranger, but I didn't feel like a stranger because she was just that woman that was going to make sure you felt loved, you felt warm, you felt necessary. And so I will always remember that. I still carry her card in my wallet to remind me not to give up, to remind me to push forward, to remind me to continue to do. Because I remember when I got the card at the funeral and I was like, why is he giving out cards? And like, this is spooky because to me, she's gone. But I told myself that day that I was going to keep that card in my pocket to remind me to not give up, to be what she seen in me before she left this earth.
Lord Jesus. All right, Q. Very cute. Okay. And you were at the funeral. I was talking to someone, like, I didn't get to see a lot of people at the funeral. I feel like the funeral home, like, rushed us through there to try to hurry up and get us to the burial site. So thank you so much for being able to attend her funeral. I know some people wanted to attend, weren't able to attend. So thank you so much for being there. I'm gonna start talking about this because Q about to send me on a whole spiral here. So we're gonna stop. Rest in love. We love you, Effie Lee, and your legacy lives on. But anyways, let's launching pad that you just mentioned. What you got going on?
Well, in the place of I went through like I said, I've written 8 books, and I went through a sabbatical of not really a sabbatical because God never leaves you alone. He always giving your ideals. Like I created a manual for a 6-month program um, for women to help push them out of what situations have put them in,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I'm in the launching pad of writing my next book, and it's having me in the posture of what is a woman, like surviving and thriving. And it's so interesting because like right now I'm in transformation from surviving to thriving. And it's like I feel like how like in the movies sometimes they talk about you want 2 feet and you want your feet in 2 different states, like you have and you're on the borderline of each, and that's how I feel like I'm in surviving and in thriving. And it's 2 different places, and it's so interesting as God leans me over to thriving, where certain things have to be broken off because of survival mode. When you're in survival mode, you're doing what it takes to get what you need. In thriving mode, you're just being.
I love that. So, is this in reference to like everyday life, or is this a specific topic, or a specific area of life that you feel like you are in transformation from surviving to thriving? Because I feel like there's certain seasons where we feel like we're thriving in this area, but we're surviving over here. And I like the word balance. I love the word balance because it helps me to understand like where I need to show. Sometimes you got to show up a little more here than you do here. Like it's just what it is, right? And so I might feel like I'm thriving as a wife in this season, but I'm struggling as a mother. I'm
Mhm.
thriving in business, but my ministry is down. Like, is this there? Are there certain areas in your life where you feel like your transformation is taking place?
Well, I believe, to be honest, it's in all areas.
Mhm.
Because when you're fully thriving, you're thriving in all the areas. Now, it's a difference, so you pulling on me, but it's a difference in visiting thriving and actually thriving.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like I've experienced thriving. My faith has walked me into some areas of thriving, but I believe that, and not but I think that I am walking in a season where God is saying, I need you to thrive in all areas so you can tell people, and you could, especially women, tell women that um you've been selling. You have been limiting what I want to do in your life. Like, to me, thriving is more surrendering to God and lining up to his will, because that's what we hear is for his will. And so when we line up, when we let our will die down and we let his will survive, then we walk into thriving.
So complete thriving, complete and absolute thriving. I
Yeah.
feel like there are seasons of thrive, like you just said. There are definitely seasons of thrive where we know how to get here. Like we know, like God has because, and I say this, God will give you strategy and blueprint to thrive. But what is the point if you're not implementing it, right? And
Right.
so there have been seasons where I've used that strategy and that blueprint to thrive in certain areas, but I'm not consistent with it. And
It's
so in that
That's it.
in that God is like, okay, I've shown you the strategy, I've shown you the blueprint, and it's like in my mind and in my heart, I know how to get to area of thrive here, but I
Hmm.
need help here. But if I'm not doing it over here the way that God instructed me, why am I
Hmm.
asking Him for strategy and blueprint over here when I'm not being obedient over here? I don't know. So complete thrive is absolutely the goal. I love that God's taking you on this transformation journey because it is something that we really need. It is if we can, I know becoming wine is about stepping into who God has called you to be in ministry or whatever it is. And in that process, we deal with the things that we harbor in our heart. And everybody has some form of rejection. Everybody deals with rejection. And so in the process of becoming wine, sometimes we have to deal with the things that we have been rejected from. And
Yeah.
so I love that in this transformation process, you said some things have to break off of you. Definitely have to break off of you. We can't go into a state of thriving, still holding on to the old man and to the old things that we've been struggling with. And I remember last year, I think I told the story. Not even entirely sure. I remember last year, my mentor, she had an event in Tampa, and I got ready to go to Tampa. I mean, if the listeners don't know, Panama City, you have to go down a road about 45 minutes before you actually hit the interstate. Yeah, we in the country. We a city in the country. But anyways, you have to go down the road before you actually hit an interstate. And as soon as I got on I-10, I was boohoo crying. I was like, Lord, I ain't even got on the interstate yet. He began to deal with me about some of the things that I didn't even know was in me. Like I didn't even know I was struggling with in the area of rejection. And so sitting with God in those moments and asking him, okay, God, what is in me and what am I struggling with? Because sometimes we don't even know, like we don't even
It's
know.
about the
And God
question.
to be like, hey, you're struggling with this. You get this from this. And I'd be like, where did that come from?
Mhm.
And so I'd imagine on your transformation journey, girl, you done seen some things and you was like, Lord, where did that come from?
Yeah. But even like the simple fact of I remember he's really been dealing with me a lot about my when I was younger, and I had my daughter when I was 17 years old. Well, I finished high school, but I was in high school when I had her, and I was staying with my sister, and he kept talking to me about my sister taught me how to survive. So it's certain things we did to survive. We wanted to meet, we didn't quite get it. It was certain things, skills that I learned to survive. As he transfers me over to thriving, he says some of them things you need to break off of you, because that's survival mode. When you're in survival mode, you're just thinking, okay, let me do what it takes to get what I need. But when you're in thrival mode, you're saying, let me look what God wants me to have. You're not just selling for, okay, for an example, one of the things that's in the book of Becoming Wine, I talk about how I went from a 1,200 square feet house to a 2390 house. Went from rent to own. You get what I'm saying? In my mind, I was kind of comfortable. But, when you start asking, people say you shouldn't ask God questions, but I disagree with that, because when you start asking God the right questions, like I remember, because I go to a faith church, and I was so confused, and I said, God, I remember I was sitting in my living room, and I was standing in my living room. I said, God, listen, I don't know what you want me to do. Do you want me to buy this house? Because I was staying in my father's house, and I said, do you want me to buy this house? Do you want me to build? Or do you have a house for me? Show me what you want, because I can believe. See, the enemy doesn't deal with me with, he deals with me with overthinking. So when I know that this is what God wants to do, you can't mess with me. So I'm just sitting there, and I literally waited for an answer. 3 days later, my friend comes up to me, and she tells me, she says, my mom just bought a house. And I was like, yes, congratulations. She said, no, no, no. I told you that because my mom needs to sell her house. And y'all can come look at it. That's not a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? So we're in this house, and I'm looking, and I'm like, God, this is what you want for me? You know what I'm saying? It's 4 bedroom, living room, den, dining room, more house than I ever could even think or want. You know what I'm saying? In a neighborhood, I would have never thought. But when God wants you to have something, He will either bring you up or bring the price down. And this house, we've been in here 3 years. But that's when you start tapping into what God is saying. That's when you start tapping into thriving, because you're not just wanting that little bit. You're not just wanting that little bit to survive. You want that what God has, because God has a bigger purpose. When God makes something or gives you something, it's bigger than you. But when you're surviving, you're just looking at what you need. But when you're thriving, you're looking at what God purpose needs. And that's the difference.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know if you caught the episode that was published today as Ken Wife Mom Boss, where I was talking about getting to the more. And I was talking
Mm.
about my mentor, she had us to read Exodus, and in there it was talking about how whenever the Israelites got into the desert, they were grumbling to Moses about, hey, why did you bring us into the desert? At least in Egypt we had food, we had bread and all of this stuff. And I was just talking about how we're so comfortable that we're willing to stay in a place of bondage,
Yes.
because of the comforts that are there when God is saying, I have more for you. You might have to go
Yes.
through a wilderness season. You might have to have
Mhm.
a couple of battles. You might have to do a couple of things. But if you're obedient to what it is that I'm telling you to do, I have more for you. And so
Yes.
I love that point that you made. And your Becoming Wild was last year, right? I'm not tripping.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah, only the year before.
It was the year before.
Hmm.
It was the year before. I'm sorry. Okay. It
Hmm.
was the year before. I was like, okay, wait, did I know about this house? But congratulations if I didn't tell you. Congratulations about the house. That is absolutely amazing. And how many kids do you have?
I have four. I
You
have
know what? I didn't even think. Where do you live? Well, I mean, I don't think we told the people where you're from.
oh well, Dothan, Alabama.
And you are married.
I am married. We've been married 17 years this year in August.
Nice. And you have your own business.
I do. I have my own business, Miss Q.
Is
Yeah,
that
and that's with the
a
books and the event planning. And then I also
event planning?
have a nonprofit called A Change in Me, which is centered around domestic violence, trauma, and helping women, and well, not only women, because it's not just a women's nonprofit; it's a people's nonprofit. It's not, because trauma. in situations we want to focus on women. Yes, it happens a lot to women, but it also happens to men too. So it's centered around the community.
Okay. We're definitely going to get there, girl. I had that in my notes to changing me domestic violence awareness because I want you to give us a little bit about your story. But you said you have 4 kids.
Yes.
Your oldest is a girl.
Yeah, her name is Billy. She's 29. And then I
Okay.
have Aaliyah. She's I don't want to say age wrong, but I think she's 23 and she has my first grandbaby. And then I have Noah, he's 22, and then I have a 17-year-old and he's a senior. Well, he'll graduate next year, so
He's about to be, baby, you got him coming out the house.
they all out the
Don't
house but
celebrate
him.
now. Don't do that, Q, because you know I got a 2-year-old over here.
Listen,
I got one out of school and one that ain't even started school. In your prayer
I will
time,
start.
I just need you to throw my name up there because the sister is over here struggling. I'm just letting
Yeah,
you know.
I got you. I got you. I understand because, baby, I
Oh
remember
my
I used
gosh.
to go to my dad's house and I used to be like, I'm almost there. Like when my son turned 5, I was like, I'm almost there. He's like, girl, you got a long way. So the other day, a couple of years ago, I said something about I'm almost done. And he said, yeah, you almost done. I was like, yes.
We thought we was there and got like God was like, nope, here you go, here you go, 2-year-old. And I was like, what? So that is hilarious. Congratulations on your grandbaby. I know you just had that grandbaby. I bet you were spoiling her so much. Oh my
He's
goodness.
actually a boy, and he has
Oh, it's
went
a boy.
through a lot. He's had 2 open heart surgeries and 4 heart calves. But God is so good. That's my miracle, baby. He's so good. He when you see him, you wouldn't have known that he had any open heart surgeries or heart calves. Um, it's just a blessing to see, God's hand on his life. And the only thing that he has is this little scar down the middle of his chest. But he is
I bet
alert and
he's
he's
such a
a
happy
full boy.
baby.
He is a full boy.
I
So
bet he's such a little happy, smiley baby.
yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Going back to it, I was like thinking, I was like, oh wait, we didn't tell the people about a little bit more about Q, where Q is from, the family, the children, all of the things, because Q, I know that an assignment to equip people and to bring people out of a place of bondage and to tell people that God has more for them is a heavy assignment.
Yes.
It's a heavy assignment because
Well,
the
you
enemy
first have
wants
to
to keep
accept
people.
that. You have to the first thing is you have to accept that that's what God has designed you. And some things, I'm not going to say everything, but some things you go through to prepare your mind for the people that you're going to pull out, so you can witness and you can tell them, okay, I remember when this happened to me. And it's funny that we're talking about this because that's literally what my books are. Leaping
I
into
was just about to
purpose.
ask you about those books. You tell me all about your books. I want you to tell me about your books, and then I want you to tell me the one that hits home the most.
Okay. So, well, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. When I first started writing books, it wasn't because I just had this desire. I was I was coming from one church to another. And God had told me to write books. Like he told me to write. I'm like, I'm not gonna write no books because I failed English. How can I do that? God, what are you talking about? Like I had just got to the point where I could hear God's voice. I didn't know if it was him or not, but I was like, okay, this sounds like be God. And then when I started going to Destiny a month later after I joined, because I went back and forth a long time. But after that, I joined, and uh, Pastor Goo prophesied that I'll write books. And you should see me like, I'll do what? Like, who could have told? Because I didn't even tell my husband. So, you mean, God, you done told this man? Like, I knew it wasn't nobody but God because nobody else would have said that to me. So, when I knew that that's what God wanted me to do, I started writing books. He said about experience and he gave me direction. So he said about, so I wrote my first moments with God because I really feel like we're in a time where people don't believe that God is real. People miss so many juicy nuggets in their lives, and they're like, oh, that was a coincidence, you know. And so that was just a that was like a baby book, you know, but it was what he told me to do. And then it was so interesting because people always act like I put my picture on that book the second time, because the first time I had just a little image of this girl, this and that, and God told me no. I need you to redo that book, and I need you to redo that cover, because my publisher quit before I finished. So that being said, I had to redo everything because she didn't want her logo on my book, you know, which was fine. But then I had to redo the cover. I was like, okay, that gives me a right to be obedient to God. So that's where that cover came from. And then I wrote two books. Gleaning into purpose, both of I mean gleaning to legacy, and these two books I wrote like after gleaning after my pastor, gleaning after a sermon he did, and then I wrote prayers, and then I wrote the importance of each area. It was like one might have been about something he talked about. So then I wrote the prayer on that specific subject, and then I wrote the reason why that is important. So that's them these two books. And then that's 1, 2, 3. So by the time I got to my third book, I started helping other people write books. So then I got gleaning into purpose, um, which that book just blew my mind because it was a sectional book, and it was formed in the butterfly. So it had the egg. I talked about my relationship with my parents, how my mom died when I was young and I was a daddy's girl. Then I talked about the what else it was. I talked about the caterpillar, how about rejection and abandonment. You never look at a caterpillar and you're like, oh, you're so beautiful. You're going to be a butterfly one day. You never look at that. So I talked about that, and then I talked about uh, isolation, how God pulled me in isolation to pour into me, and then I talked about the butterfly. So that's gleaning to purpose. And then I have the SOS book, which is a devotion. I literally had to post that book for me to finish writing it. It's like a 30-day devotion because I didn't want to do that. I didn't feel like I was equipped for it. And then I have what's the name of it? Born to Legacy. That's a collaboration that I wrote with other women. And then I have Becoming Wine. And that book was literally me just being obedient. Like, if you talk about the best book, I think the best part of me, that's Becoming Wine, because I literally surrendered and I wrote, and I didn't second guess. I literally like gave I was working at this place, and I gave this woman and one of my friends the introduction to that book. And it was like, I can't wait till you get through writing this. And they was super excited about it. So that, you know, and I talk about overcoming certain things and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my collection of books.
That's good. That's
In a
real
quick
good. And I love what you
nutshell.
said. Huh?
I said in a quick nutshell.
In a quick nutshell, you said nobody looks at a caterpillar and think, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna be a beautiful butterfly one day." Girl, because if I seen a caterpillar and it was crawling on me or around me, baby, I'm probably get off me.
And that's
I'm
what
not gonna
people
be
do
thinking,
to
"Oh my
us.
gosh, you're gonna be so beautiful one day." But
Mhm.
that's real good. That God gave you that reference. I love that even your process of writing the books is a testimony
Mhm.
to whoever God sends you to. I'll have to read that book. That sounds like an amazing book. How God gave you the analogy of the process of becoming a butterfly. How
Yes.
we start and how we come out to this beautiful thing because people get stuck. Um,
Yes. And that's the thing. The leaping into purpose and the becoming wine, they are self-care books. So it's like I tell my story, and I even talk about in leaping into purpose, I talk about forgiveness. and how forgiveness is about us and not about them, you know. And so what I do is I tell my story and then I ask you questions. And someone told me once, I'm just like, I ask myself questions, but you don't ask yourself the questions that pull you out. We ask ourselves safe questions. We don't ask the questions that's going to shift us and make us change. And so these questions, you even on the book you have lines where you can write the answers. And what God told me was that people will start be delivered and shift as they're writing in the book. When you're reading something, you it strikes some emotion and strikes some things in you that shake up, and you need a place to put that. So that's what the whole purpose of the questions is, to pull out what you've been keeping in.
Yeah. So I'm gonna tell you, I have a coach, and I remember when I first went to my coach, he asked me what kind of coach I was, and I was like, I don't know. And then I soon learned that I was a transformational coach for that reason. A
Mhm.
lot of the books I read, write, actually all the books that I write have lines in them for you to write. It asks questions, and I think true transformational coaches ask those questions that are
Yeah.
going to make you really sit with God and think.
Mhm.
So that you can come out of that barrier thing. And it was funny that you mentioned unforgiveness because I have an forgiveness prayer call coming up this week. Um, I guess this will air the week after. So I have it coming up this week though. And I remember sitting in the bed and God said, unforgiveness is a defense mechanism. Essentially you can build a wall of unforgiveness to try to
Yeah.
keep people out, to try to like preserve your feelings and make sure
Mhm.
that you don't get hurt again. But the problem with that is that you're also burying yourself in. And so it's the defense mechanism when God is trying to get you to another level or trying to get you to do more, and you're stuck behind this wall of unforgiveness. And so I'm not saying the unforgiveness is not warranted. I'm not saying that the unforgiveness is not there for a specific reason. I know it's there for a specific reason, but
Mhm.
that is something that God wants to break off of us too. That is definitely a
Yeah,
place where we're
because
in
it's
this
holding
mode where we got to become this beautiful butterfly that we have to
us
fly off into what it is that God is
down.
calling for us to do.
Yeah, because it's holding us down. Because unforgiveness is not about you. I mean, it's not about them, it's about you. It's
Hmm.
about your heart, because God checks our heart. And so if something's in your heart that's not like Him, then that holds you back.
Yep. It holds
And
you
I
down. It's a
had to,
weight.
yeah, it is. And we think it's a small thing, but it's not.
Hmm.
Because as it sits in there, like you just said, it grows and it
It
starts getting rooted,
festers.
and then things are on top of it, and then you got to dig all that stuff up, and it's crazy. It's like, I learned that the hard way. I went through a situation when I was younger, and I'm a type of person, I love to give, I love to do, and I found myself where I couldn't give to this particular
Mm.
person, and I was like, why am I like this? Like, why can't I do this? And then I would be in church and I would, like, raise my hands up, be in position, and I couldn't receive the Lord. And He said, because you haven't dealt with that. And I was like, okay, so let's get this right, because I need this. I
Right?
need this posture. I need this love. I need this. So I'm in a place now that I probably forgive people way quicker than they think I do, because I need my heart to be clean. Because it's not about
Girl,
them, it's
I thought you was
about
about to
God.
say, and let me say, because sometimes we have to forgive people quicker than they even realize they offended us.
Listen, yes.
Sometimes we gotta forgive them before they even realize that they offended us. But then again, that goes into the spirit of offense, and I offense is gonna happen, like just point blank and period. But
Hmm.
when you come into agreement with that offense, like when you allow that offense to begin to govern your thoughts and your words, your actions, and your
Right.
spirit, that's when you've come into agreement with the spirit of offense, and that's when we go into the process of being unforgiving, and God is He's gonna deal with that thing. Like He's gonna have to deal with that thing before He takes you into that transition from surviving to thriving. He definitely is going to have to deal with that thing. And so you talked a little bit about church, and I know that I mentioned a little bit about church hurt, and just tell us a little bit about your church life. Are you an ordained minister?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Are you in? Okay, I thought you was in training for it though.
Well, I am in transition.
Okay. All right, you in training, baby. You transition in all these areas of life. All right. So
All him. All him.
I was talking about, you know what, sometimes churches are hard because we have an organization of people who really love the Lord, but they're stuck in cycles of religion and tradition, and it keeps the fullness of God from being like in the atmosphere.
Mhm.
And that can be such a hard thing. And it causes people to like go from church to church seeking the glory of God. And it sounds like you have gotten everything that you need in the church that you decided to join.
Yeah, well, to be honest, the interesting thing about me being at Destiny is not like God sent me there. I was at my dad's church and I was good and content. You know what I'm saying? Like I was good. God sent me there. I end up it's so interesting. I end up going there because I won a scholarship for Bible college and I was hungry for God. And I
Bible college
remember,
at the church.
yeah, somebody
Oh,
somebody had given one away and I ended up winning one. But it was little things before then that like I would listen to Pastor Jay on the radio. I didn't even know that was him. I thought it was somebody from Atlanta, you know. But he would shake me up before I go to my dad's church, and I didn't know. But later I found out. And then when I won the scholarship, I remember him in the middle of the service just stop. And like when God was starting to deal with me about prophetic, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like, he's like, but that's for you. He was like, I'm gonna wait. And I thought that was so intriguing, you know. And so when God started dealing with the prophetic, I asked him, I said, I inboxed him because I wasn't a member, but I was like, was what you were saying when I came to your church, was that for me? And he said, yes. I wanted to drop my phone. Cause I was like, okay, now, God, you're real now. Like you're real, like, and it was so intriguing, you know. And it was like the day he released the word, God had told me the day before. And that morning I woke up and I was like, he gonna speak to me today. It was like I knew it. I was so in tune and so close to God. Like I knew it. I was like, he's gonna speak to me today. And he spoke. But I wasn't expecting what he said, you
mm,
know. And one of the things he said is, y'all got big vessels, but y'all need my oil. Like he's talking to me and my husband. It's like y'all got big vessels, you need my oil. And anytime that the enemy tried to pull me away from there, I would remember that. We've got to be here. This has to be working for my good. This has to be making me better. If God allowed this to happen, like I had to stop looking at what people were doing and look at what God wanted to do. And I think so many times the reason why people jump from church to church to church is because they're not in tune enough with God to know that's the place you're supposed to be.
that's where they need to be.
Maybe the attack came because that's where you should be.
Yep.
Maybe the attack came because that's the place going to develop you. You can't, I mean, come on now. Like, even in a child's life, a child stays in the house for a certain amount of time to prepare them for the world. So, in the same thing with the church, you have to be in a church home to prepare you for whatever calling you have to do.
Hmm.
Why do we think, oh, God called me, I'm supposed to be out there, I'm supposed to do this,
Yeah.
when we haven't been developed?
Right.
Yes, you
Right.
have. Yes, yes, you're oily. Yes, you're anointed. But have you been developed? And what
That's
God is
good.
doing for you, I mean, I've been at Destiny for 10 years. So it's
Wow.
not like it's a quick work, but it's necessary.
Hmm.
And each stage has something, like when I was in the pew, whatever, that's one thing. And then now that I'm in transition between the two places, that's another thing. And each level is necessary. It's a different development when you're in the pews is a different. Like when I was an usher there for a long time, that was a different development. That's when I got delivered from some things. I used to be the worst usher. I would always be on the floor. They'd be like, when the spirit go high, Cornetta may be out. Like, it's just
You I
that's
need you
just
to
where
get
it
up off the
was.
floor and go get him a fan.
Like, like she may be, and I didn't mean it that way, but it was like I was so tapped in, and I used to be like, why y'all don't hear what he's saying? Like it was so good to me, but that was such a delivering process for me. And then when I transitioned into transitioning and preparing to be in ministry, that's a whole nother transition, and that's another posture. You see the church a different way, you see the serving a different way in the house. And even when I become whatever he decides to put me as, that's another position, because now I'm serving in this title under this ministry. And so I still have to sit. It's not time for me to go launch my own this and launch my own that, because he's still teaching me and developing me into what God wants me to be. So I'll be there as long as God calls me to be there, because God sent me. And
Yeah,
that's what we
that's
got to
that's
understand.
that's key. God sent me. That's key.
Yeah.
I remember asking God, I wanted to move churches. And I
Hmm.
remember asking God about moving to church. And he said, no, this is where I have for you to be right now. And I pleaded with God because I wanted to move churches. I mean, I love my church. I love, love, love my church. I
Hmm.
love everybody in my church. I just wanted something more. But he didn't want me to move churches. Instead, he told me, hey, I want you to go and get this mentor. I want this lady to be
Exactly.
your mentor.
And
Yeah,
some
like
people
he did other ways. And not saying, listen, hear me. I'm not saying that your father's church was bondage. It was not bondage, and I get it. But could you imagine you being so comfortable in that spot that you decided that you weren't going to progress to what it was that God was calling for
exactly.
you to do? Like a lot of the times we can interfere with what it is that God is doing for our destiny and for our legacy, even because we sit in a place of comfort. And so, man,
Yeah.
kudos to you for getting up. I mean, because I'm sure you were very comfortable at your father's church and you probably could get your way with certain things at your father's church.
But
But
I
you,
ran there too. I ran there because I got hurt at another church. And I ran there because I knew that my father loved me. And so I
yeah,
didn't have to worry about that. I didn't have to, like, I could trust that. I was comfortable. And the thing is, like, what God began to tell me is be comfortable, be comfortable being uncomfortable.
mm-hmm,
And literally that's what it was, because sometimes when we're protected, it shields us from the lesson.
mm-hmm,
And so that's why I had to be launched out. And then it wasn't, like my father's church is a Baptist church. So if he's teaching me the prophetic, he has to put me where the prophetic is at.
right, right,
So it's a learning lesson. It's not that one's greater than the other. It's just this is what he wants to deal with you right now in.
right, 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 absolutely. But it's walking into an unknown. It's
Now that's the
walking
hard part.
known. And so kudos to you for doing that because a lot of people won't. Like a lot of people will sit in the familiar territory and they'll completely miss what it is that God is trying to do in their next level. And church hurt is a real thing. So you said you ran to your dad's church because you had been hurt in the other church. But the funny thing is the enemy knows that church hurt is there. And so even in the church that you're in now, you've probably experienced some of those things that caused the church hurt the first time because the enemy just brings that like the same tricks like with different
Exactly.
people.
He does.
Man,
He does.
that's so
He
frustrating.
tries to use things as he tries to use people, but I had
Hmm.
to realize it's not a people thing, it's a spirit thing.
I was gonna say, I see that spirit, honey. I'm
Yes.
looking past you.
And
I
I
see
and
that
I'm right.
spirit.
I'm going to take everything that I go through back to God, because once you learn that, it doesn't matter. Like it's
Hmm.
like, okay, God, I see this. I mean, because to be honest, like let's just say this. If my husband does something that offends me, I can't leave him.
I go to God. God, get your son.
but that's what I'm saying. And what I had to learn was the more I would talk to God, the more I would petition God, not my husband, but petition
Hmm.
God, God would change things. I remember one time, this is so funny. I remember one time, um, I love Christmas, like I love Christmas, and I love to decorate. So because my biological mother, she would put the tree in front of the window. I love that. So my dad had gave my husband a recliner, and it was like right in front of the window, and it was like I was like, that's just not positioned. The chair was broken, and I was like, oh, this is like this is like irking me. And then he said, I said, I'm not gonna say nothing to him. I was like, because he loves this chair, because my dad gave it to him, I'm gonna leave it right here, and I'm just gonna go. So I left, came back. When I came back, the chair was on the side of the road. And I was running in there, and I was like, Uriel, what happened? Why'd you put the chair on the side of the road? He says, you've been praying. He was like, you praying, you know why that chair on the side of the road. And it was so funny. And I was like, at that moment, that's when I knew, take your battles to him.
The
He
Lord,
will take care of
absolutely.
it all.
I do kingdom wife coaching for kingdom wives who are having marital distress or issues in marriage. And that is the first thing I'm gonna tell you. Like you number one, unforgiveness. We're gonna deal with unforgiveness. But when you have an issue with your husband, you cannot take that to your husband because sometimes he's mentally or spiritually not open to receive your complaint or what it is that you're doing. You better go in that room and prostrate on your face or get on your knees and seek God about it. But when you
Right.
go to God about it, you have to seek God's will about the situation because sometimes we
Yes.
have our own desire and
Of
sometimes we have
course.
our own thing that we want. And if there are moments where God will allow, he'll tell your husband to move that chair on the side of the road. But there are also moments where God will let you know that you need to just like calm down and step off
It's
and let
you.
let him
Yes.
do what he needs to do. Your
It's
husband. So we are getting deep in this podcast, but I want you to tell us about the domestic violence and awareness that you have.
okay. So several. Well, I don't even know when it was. Um, Before I met my husband, I was in a domestic violence situation, and um, it I wasn't in it enough to like. It wasn't a long variety thing, but I was in it enough to know how a person can make you feel. And so it just stirred up on my heart. Okay, so I was sitting in my bed one day after I got married, and I was sitting in my bed, and I kind of felt like I had this church thing right, somewhat right. And I was hungry and wanted more of God. And I was like, okay, God, what do you want me to do for the community? Like, I get we're doing the stuff in the house, but what is it in the community that you want me to do? And that's why it got the name A Change in Me, because it was a change within me that I wanted to help women that couldn't help themselves. I wanted to expose, because a lot of times women, we say they know, but they don't know. Because domestic violence is not just, it's verbal, it's, controlling. They may not know. And then another thing is that they seen their mom go through it. So they think it's love. And so I wanted to expose that. So I started doing the event where I would let a survivor come in and speak. And, and it was all geared around it. But I found out, I did that a couple years, and I found out that it was like helping, but it was not helping. Like it was helping expose them, but it wasn't giving them the tools and skills to pull them out. Like it's like you're saying, okay, I need a car, but then you don't have a car, you know. So then I think it was last year I came up with well, God gave me this manual called Give Yourself Time. And it's a 6 month program where you meet twice a week. I mean, not twice a week, I'm sorry, twice a month. and for 6 months. And it's basically to help pull you out of not only domestic violence, but pull you out of traumatic situations where you can um, think different. Because you can go to a woman or man and say leave them, but they're not gonna leave them. But if you give them the power and educate them on and build this up, build their heart up, build their mind up, then they can make better decisions. Because maybe every situation ain't meant to be love. Maybe it's meant for them to grab their control back. Because some people do things because you allow them. And sometimes when you grab your control back, that changes that person. You know, so coming from this side way of doing this, it to me, I think it's a game changer because now you're giving them the tools. And it's in this book, it's not just a book like where it has 6 modules, and even in the modules they have the words, the lesson, I should say. It has the questions. It has places for notes. It has place for your weekly activities. It has a page where it says the thought of the week. Because when you're going through your process, God gives you thoughts, and you need a place. You don't want to necessarily put that in your notes, but you need a place to put that down in to just to help process what you're doing. And with that being said, it's 155 pages. So it's a lot of detail and a lot of it's a color book. And so it's a lot of detail. It's a lot of so I want to start in October, um and start inviting people into this circle to do this. Not necessarily um he hasn't gave me the full process of the amount or whatever, but just to invite people in to start so we can see how it's changed people's lives, so we can see how what we may need to tweak and stuff like that. So that's just my a change. That's my change in me.
That sounds like a powerful ministry that God has entrusted to you, to just help people. It's true. Sometimes people don't understand that they're in domestic violence situations or they ignore red flags and they find themselves in very dangerous situations. So, being able to be a resource to help them realize that, hey, sis, you got to get out, or
Yeah.
to help them realize, yeah, you need to take your power back. That's an amazing ministry. So you got a lot going on. You want to tell us about any? So I know you said you're in process of the transformation, and I'm pretty sure that's a pro. Is that a program? Is that a book? What is that? It's a coaching
Um.
program.
Well, God has allowed me to be in transformation to prepare for this book called Me
For the book.
versus Me.
Me versus me. Okay, perfect. So any kind of coaching programs or classes that you have coming up, we can look forward to the Me versus Me book. And it's gonna hold you accountable because you done told us that it's coming. So you're gonna have to make sure make sure that you listen. I'm telling you, it's the accountability aspect of it that makes us like, okay, I gotta finish editing this book and I gotta do this. And girl, I done told people that this book was coming out, the book that I'm finishing up right now. And so I was like, oh girl, you gotta finish this book. So I have been very diligent about making sure that I spend the time to do the book. And you're like me, like, girl, we got kids and a full-time job and ministry and books. Like we have all of this stuff. And so sometimes it's very easy to just be like, you know what, I just want to breathe and I just want to take a moment. And while that is very important and very necessary, it's also important to balance and to make sure that we get the work done that we got to get done because there are people waiting on this. So, is there anything that you want to share with us that you have to offer for the Kingdom Wife Mom Boss who might be in need of transformation coach?
Okay. So well, I help people write books, so it's a strategy to it, as far as the books go, because let me tell you, I've written a book in 3 months and pushed it out. Like God has given me that strategy. And when he put something on my heart, because like I remember in, I think it was in 23, May of 23, I think Pastor Good prophesied and said that I will not write any books. And so I've been kind of like waiting for, like, I've written, like, I've put some stuff in my notes or whatever. And so it's funny because now it's like I just got a prophecy that my next book will be the book that sends me overseas. And
Nice.
I'm like, okay, so I guess it's time to write. So God, but God deals with me in such a different way with books. It's like I do a lot of, I don't know if you experience this too or not, but I do a lot of deliverancy books. Like I produce, like it's some prophetic books, and so it's like I experience what I write about before I write about it. So it's that part that's so intriguing to me. It's the shifting that is happening in me, and so a lot of thoughts are in my head, and a lot of movements, and certain stories he's telling me, and I'm like, okay, so I'm more in the posture of saying, okay, God, what do you want me to write? Like what stories, what part of my business you want me to tell? Um, but I'm excited about it because I know that this book will deliver and set free a lot of people. Because the more raw I am with you, the more raw you can be like, okay, that was me. That was it. And this is a woman's book. So this is the first book that I'm writing specifically towards women. And so I'm kind of intrigued with that because I'm in my inner girl. So I'm excited about that. Now, my writing classes, they're like right now they're on one-on-one. So if you go to my website, you can sign up for that. They're always available. Then I have my Leaping into Purpose masterclass. It's with the book and that's available on my website. So any one of them, you could sign up, and then I'll send you the link for them. And then we'll see, if anybody's interested, uh, inbox me or inbox you about the uh, give yourself time, and we may do it before October.
What's your website?
Oh, my website is www.mrsque.com.
MrsQ.com. All right, Q. It has been amazing for you to share and to pour your wisdom and your experience into the Kingdom Wife Mom Boss community. I'm praying that somebody that hears this will begin to, and it's a seed of transformation. It's a seed of, hey, I want change and I want something different. So I thank you for planting those seeds on the podcast today. We are grateful to have you on. And she told you her website, how to get in touch with her. You can also follow her on Facebook, Instagram. What else you got?
And TikTok, and I think that's it.
Okay. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you want
Okay,
to connect with
YouTube.
her, huh? YouTube.
Mhm.
YouTube. You can connect with her if you're interested in any of the things that she has offered, or if you just want to be connected to a powerful woman of God who is giving you the transformation that you need to get to your next level of thrive. So thank you so much for joining us. We are going to catch you on another episode of the Kingdom Wife Mom Boss podcast, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.